Okay, let's continue with verse 7. The grid viewer and a lot more. MBgrdviz or GERDviz. In this video, we will cover what MBgrdviz is and why we should use it, how to launch it and load some grids, the main interface and visualization controls, overlay navigation, editing and integrating with other MB system tools, and finally some workflow tips, best practices and limitations. For that, we can load MBgrdviz, and from there we load a grid. Note that I have run this script from the tutorial, the script that execute all the commands covered by the chapter 1. So with that, I created at least 3 grids, one with the bathymetry, one with the amplitude data / backscatter, and another with the side scan data. So now I will open the bathymetry grid. This may look very similar to MBgrdviz because the same tools share a lot of similarities. You will notice also the hole that I left in our data set. But here you don't see the navigation lines because we just loaded a grid. What else can we do here? We can, for instance, visualize our map in 3D. So here I had rotated the map, that's why. Notice that while I'm moving the surface, it's rendering using a lower resolution, but as soon as I stop moving, it renders in full resolution. Another thing we can do is that we can load the navigation and then enable it here. If this was AUV data, we would see also the path of the AUV spiraling, going down, reaching the seafloor, or close to it obviously, and then performing the survey, and then going all the way up. So let's switch now back to 2D, and for instance we can investigate the slope of the map, or we can change the illumination. In this case I'm simulating illumination using a certain direction of the sun and a certain inclination. We can also use this method to hide problems if we orient the illumination from certain angles. We can also have routes or sites. We can enable contour lines. And we can change, for example, the color table. Another thing we can do with this tool is that we can, for instance, load another grid. In this case, I will load the amplitude data. And once that is enabled here, we can see the amplitude data over our map. So in this case we have to switch to grayscale, and one thing we have to do still is that we have to invert the color table so that areas with high backscatter have a brighter color and areas with low backscatter have a darker color. And obviously we can also visualize that in 3D. So let's switch back to bathymetry. Another thing we can do with this tool is that we can say edit sites. Here's the explanation how this feature works. So I can add points to my map. For instance, if I have seen an interesting feature, I can mark them And these points that I'm creating go into a list that is here, site list. And if I'm not satisfied with one of these dots, I can select it and delete. And I can also export this as a text file with the locations and depth and other informations that I can see in that table. Similarly, I can also create routes. So for instance, now I selected here edit routes, and I can create a route in case, for example, I would like to create a survey. So for instance, if I would want to create a survey, now I'm creating this. And if I disable my navigation, I can see the survey that I just created. Similarly, I can also save that as a root file, but Dave Carres has implemented a lot of exports here, so we can export this in a format compatible with HiPack or with SIS or Kongsberg and so on. Another feature that we can use here is that if I disable the routes and the sites, so that I can go to pick area, and then I can see the locations, the corners of this area, and I can see the width and the average height, I presume. But the interesting feature here is that I can say view as a new view. So if I want to extract a certain part of the map and visualize it separately, I can do that. But another thing I can do is that if I drag the area with the middle mouse button or the wheel, I have something similar to what I did at MBgrdviz. But in this case, another feature is available. And here I can say generate survey route from the area. And here I can say the line spacing, the corner from where the survey should start. And I can say if the line should have a uniform line spacing. Obviously, this is done for creating surveys for AUV data, but we can also create surveys for ship data. Last but not least, once we dismiss here, and let's bring back the navigation lines. Another very important feature from MBgrdviz is that we can start the other MB system tools from MBgrdviz. From that, for example, if I select here with pick nav file this line, I have other features available, like I can start that line using MBEdit, I can edit that line using MBgrdviz, or MBNavEdit, or MBVelocity tool. So here an example. Or I can go with MBEditviz and edit only that line. Here the window is behind the MBgrdviz, so if I select now view all files, it will give me a certain resolution that is automatically calculated. We know that we can push the resolution up to 75 meters with no problem. And here we have the file. And for instance, now if I would like to remove the turns from this file, I can select those with pick nav, and then I have just a turn, and I can say grab and select the whole window, delete all soundings from the turn, and I can do that for the other turn. For instance, I can pick the nav. Here I can see the sounds that got flagged and the sounds that are still not flagged, and I can select those. And then if I update the grid, now the turns are gone. And but I have to dismiss properly and close. That is saves the edits. And I guess with that we have covered the most important features from MBgrdviz. And now I guess our series of videos has come to an end. but in the near future I will provide more videos explaining some more interesting features from the tools that we cover over this 7 to 8 videos. Alright, goodbye.